My lungs burned as I darted through the neon-riddled alleyways of New Eden, the heavy thud of my heartbeat synchronizing with the reverberating bass of sonic shields. Every footfall echoed against the slick metallic walls, a frantic rhythm that pushed me deeper into the maze of the city's underbelly. The metallic smell of ionized air veiled my senses, an odd bouquet of ozone and despair beneath the glow of the holographic advertisements flickering overhead. So much for interstellar peace talks. I was running, a mere footnote in a grander narrative that I now feared was spiraling beyond my control. The message I had intercepted, a digital scream buried in a secure transmission, had revealed everything. The Gathering, an enigmatic force pulling strings behind the galaxy's political chaos, planned to extinguish humanity's fledgling resistance once and for all. My heart sank at the thought of our last chance falling into their clutches. I was caught in a trap of my own making. My brother's debt to the Syndicate had seen us dragged into this farce. I had to reach the rendezvous point, where hope awaited in the guise of an unlikely ally, before it was too late. Around me, the alley twisted and turned, alive with graffiti-laden walls. They told stories, of despair, of glory, of the people we had lost. My pulse quickened as I thought of Mark, the loyal mechanic who had put my needs above his own. If his faith kept him one step ahead of the Gathering's assassins, it was only a matter of time before they released the hounds. An accusing voice nagged at the back of my mind. They wouldn't be after me if I hadn't cheated during the last race. The race that defied extinction. It was supposed to be a symbol of our unity against the Gathering, a desperate attempt to demonstrate ourselves as more than mere remnants of a dying race. I had volunteered and had nearly driven us to victory until I couldn't resist the urge to push my modded cycle more than it could endure. The harrowing crash had ended our hopes and driven my brother into the Syndicate's arms. I didn't just accept my punishment, I embraced it. Now, their shit was the reason I was sprinting, drenched in night sweat, half expecting blades to flash behind me. A pelting rain began to fall, weaving through the artificial lights, as if the city itself wept for its history. It hammered against my helmet, drowning out the chaotic city sounds. I ducked into the shadow of a crumbling structure, glancing back. No one yet. Chills raced through my spine, but I pressed on. I had only moments to spare before our fate was sealed. I turned again into another alley, determined to push the memory of the swirling dust and flames from the failed race behind me. Anger simmered beneath my skin, not just towards the Syndicate, nor the Gathering, but at myself. I wasn't just running from them. I was running from the little shards of regret that clung to my heart. I could have saved Mark. I should have, but I would have been blinded by pride. The distant hum of engines shattered my thoughts, vibrating like a death knell in my chest. I increased my pace, my legs screaming in protest. As I rounded another corner, the light shifted. Shadows pooled beneath the crumbling facade of a dilapidated data hub, an ancient remnant of the time before. I hesitated. My fingers brushed the metal edge of the entrance, an instinct to hide as dread coiled in my gut. The Gathering had eyes everywhere. Footfalls echoed behind me, heavy with pursuit. I sprang through the threshold, slamming the door shut just as a beam of laser light lanced past. The room was dark, lit only by the ghostly glow of dormant screens lining the walls. Dust floated through the air, agitated by the sudden gust. It reeked of neglect, a reminder of what we had all surrendered to war. I fished through the pockets of my jacket for the emergency tablet, cringing at how much of my world relied on it. My fingers trembled as I activated it, breathing heavily against the cool illumination. A flicker of life splashed across the screen as the dim digital map illuminated the room. Run, Paula, run. You still don't get it. They don't just want your brother back, they want the last strand of hope. Mark's voice echoed in my mind, a distant warning I had snuffed out with reckless determination. He had tried to save me from the allure of racing. It had cost him everything. I had to reconnect with him, I realized, and my brother's link to the Syndicate might hold a piece of the puzzle. My heart raced, I could reach out through the data streams from this hub. If only I could bypass the firewalls, which might draw immediate attention. Faster, I whispered to myself, fingers dancing across the tablet's surface. The stakes were impossibly high, but I couldn't afford to lose anything else. I needed to save Mark and redeem my path before the gathering snuffed it all out for good. The door shuttered behind me, and I bit back a scream. The tension in the hollow space urged me forward. I needed to find more than clarity. I needed a miracle. In this race against extinction, I had no idea if I would emerge alive or become just another ghost hidden in New Eden's shadows. The door rattled violently, a pulse of rugged desperation echoing against the hollow walls of the old data hub. My fingers wrestled with the emergency tablet, sweat gathering at my brow as I nervously tapped through layers of security protocols. Come on, I muttered, every noise amplifying my sense of urgency. The gathering's agents were relentless. They weren't ruthless for mere sport, they sought information. My brother and I were trifles in a larger game that involved far more than just us. A crack shattered the tension in the air as the door burst open. I flinched, spinning, a mixture of fear and adrenaline coursing through me. The towering silhouette of a figure stood in the doorway, a heavy, set man, clad in black reinforced armor, and with a helmet that concealed all but his simmering eyes. "Run," he growled. I had mere moments to process the whirlwind of his presence and motives. Before I could question who to trust, he lunged at me, an arm outstretched, barely dodging the volley of plasma shots that erupted through the doorway. The room erupted in chaos. Alarms blared, shattering my concentration. I barely registered the thud of his boots as he barreled into me. "Isabel," he shouted over the cacophony of warning sirens. Recognition flickered in the depths of my mind, a past tethered to manipulation and betrayal. "Mark," I gasped, grappling with both disbelief and relief flooding through me. My brother had risked everything to come save me. "I thought you were dead." "What? I'm not dead, but I might as well be if we don't move. The gathering will turn this place into a graveyard." He interrupted, urging me to follow him further into the darkened depths of the hub. We woven through outdated systems and crumbling infrastructure, all the while still fervently unwinding the threads of the past that stung with betrayal. We dived into the narrow maintenance passageways that snaked through the building, rain pattering against the metal tendrils above. My heart thundered as we whisked away from the incoming threat. "Tell me you learned something while under the Syndicate's wing," I pressed, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I chased after him. "We've been set up by the Syndicate," he said, glancing back at me with wild determination in his eyes. "The gathering's using them to lure us into the open. They want to crush our hopes before we even get a chance to regroup. And here's the kicker. They've got their fingers running deeper than we realized. They are using our own tech against us." His words sank like heavy stones in a still lake, rippling into my consciousness. "What do you mean? The Syndicate has access to experimental tech. The same tech we've built and trusted. They've been feeding misinformation, draining our resources while stoking flames of panic. Half of our alliances, they're fabricated threads to keep us distracted, while they dismantle us from the inside out." Why? A panic clawed at me, fighting against the clarity I desperately sought. Are we really that weak, destined to fall into this trap? No. Mark turned sharply, arresting the flow of despair in the air. The gathering doesn't see us as weak. They see humanity as a threat. We have something they covet: resilience, innovation, and the will to endure. They are shattering the illusion we built, and if we're not careful— He trailed off, his voice sinking into the echoing silence that now filled the passages. The scope of our struggle became clearer and heavier with each spoken word. We were not just fighting the gathering, we were fighting ourselves, battling remnants of a fractured civilization seeking to reclaim its strength. As we pressed on, a glittering holographic map flickered into view on my emergency tablet, illuminating the dark space around us. I adjusted it, flinching at the overloading light, and pointed towards a hidden compartment in the west quadrant. Maybe, We can use this access to connect to the grid and gather intel to find more of them rebels or sympathizers. Mark hesitated, sensing my desperation to connect with the greater thread of our galaxy's potential allies. That's a risk. We don't know who's waiting out there, he muttered, wrestling with tethering hope and mistrust. We could expose ourselves, or we could uncover the truth before they decide our fate for us. I countered, urgency clenching my chest. With a reluctant nod, Mark led the way. As we maneuvered deeper into the structure's bowels, the atmosphere shifted. Here, amidst the wreckage and flickering lights, we found a cache of ancient tech, the pulse of civilization frozen in time, a flicker of hope amidst the desolation. We emerged into an open room. Remarkably reminiscent of a control center, the air hummed with dormant energy as old hard drives and screens lay scattered about. The walls were lined with dust, covered consoles, their surfaces cracked with age, yet adorned with the designs of technology still too advanced for our own understandings. A twinge of nostalgia sparked in my chest. Where was that unity we had once envisioned? Instead, a strange dissonance loomed. Mark powered up one of the main consoles, illumination surging through the space, by breaking down old security walls. They'll find us, but we need a narrative to work with, something to overturn this charade of arrangements. If we can connect through the grid, we could expose the syndicate. My pulse quickened, the tangibility of the plan electrifying my thoughts. And if we succeed, when the screen flickered and hissed to life, a web of data unfolded before us like strands of silvered light. Countless static points dotted the holographic map. The syndicate's network was massive, sprawling beyond what I had imagined. We have to prioritize targets, EI directed, heart racing. Striking central hubs might weaken them, force some faction to expose the gathering. What began as impulse morphed into an action plan amidst our frayed ties with trusted allies. The struggle built walls between not just factions but alliances forged in desperation, a touch of humility mixed with strength coursing through these old joints. Paula, Mark croaked, his voice low, we should look for allies capable of changing this tide. If we can prove that the truth lies hidden at the syndicate's feet, maybe we can rally people, but you have to trust me. Trust is what got us into this mess, Mark. What if you're wrong? There's no victory without risk. His eyes darkened, but I won't let the gathering shatter us. A tremor radiated through my soul as the urgency shifted, every choice unwinding more than just our paths. They dove into the depths yet unseen. I felt our bond strain against the weight of treachery and mistrust born from past choices. While I nodded, something in the depths of my heart tugged uneasily. As I stepped forward to tap the screen and connect with the grid, I sensed a hidden danger lurking outside the neon glow, radiating from the main console. The tether of collaboration, I wondered, could it withstand the darkness that remained torn asunder? With purpose, we directed our next steps toward the unknown, stepping into the shadows where the light flickered just out of reach, pursuing our fate amid the thrum of lost hopes, and tapping into a future waiting to be written. The front door croaked open, a chilling echo. We weren't alone after all. The echo of crunching metal cut through the air like a knife as shadows warped around the doorframe. My heart raced, each pulse hammering a warning into my veins. Hide, I hissed to Mark, but he was already sliding to one side, melding into the darkness beside a crumbling terminal. I flickered my gaze toward the control panel before me. It hummed with opportunity and danger in equal measure. I had to remain in contact with the grid to keep us connected, to gather intel that could mean our survival. However, as the shadows donned cloaks of menace, I realized I was also putting us at risk. The door creaked open fully, the figure silhouetted against the dim light. Recognizable armor glinted in the dull glow, the gathering's enforcers. The intruder stepped inside, gnarled fingers gripping a pulse rifle, chest heaving as he unfolded. His gaze swept the room with predatory instinct, seeking out the whispers of life teetering between fading screens and rusted machinery. I know you're in here, he growled, voice low and gravelly. Come out, and this will go easier for you. Rattled by the assertion, I dared to think of escape, far too aligned with the instincts that brought me to race alleys in the past. But I couldn't afford to put Mark in greater danger. I nodded reluctantly at him, trying to convey that we needed to remain still, like shadows blending into the remnants of a bygone world. I will find you, the soldier continued, as if pulling the truth from the void. With a flick of his wrist, a series of holographic displays erupted from his wrist. Mounted projector. A spiderweb of mapping, tools, and interfaces visibly surging to life. So they did have access to our technology. The Syndicate had given the gathering key locations across the grid. It cut deeper, unveiling the truth that Mark had first suggested. Betrayal pulsed in our veins as our own had been used against us. Then, my focus shifted toward the readout. A nearby icon flickered ominously. Another team of enforcers had already descended upon our location. There was no time left. They were closing in fast. I felt the icy grip of resignation clawing at my gut, leaving me breathless. We were seconds from exposure, and fear was screaming in my ears. You have to back me up, I whispered to Mark, my fingers dancing over the console. I'll provoke him. Get into position and wait for my cue. I don't think that's a good, just do it, I hissed, cutting him off. The flicker of lights dimmed briefly before re-emerging, igniting the shadows surrounding me. I activated the panel, warping the data contained within, looking for vulnerabilities in the gatherer's position. I needed to bait him. I forced a voice louder than my trembling heart, modulated through the ambient technology. You think you can intimidate us? The enforcer turned, surprise surging through him. You're just a pawn, just like the rest of us. A tool broken by your masters. Rage contorted his face while the holograms continued to whirl and illuminate the room, casting an eerie glow over our surroundings. You think you can override our methods? You're lost. You'll regret this. I pressed onward, adrenaline roaring louder than the gathering's affliction. Your leaders don't care about you. You're nothing to them. They'll dispose of you when you're no longer useful, just like they'll do to anyone who speaks against them. Why don't you confront them? You must have a code. You want me to turn traitor? The enforcer tightened his grip on the rifle, but I could see the flicker of doubt buried in his hardened gaze. We have laws, contracts, blood debts. Blood debts fear chaos. They will control you till they no longer need you, until the gathering sees you as a mere obstacle. I could feel Mark tensed behind a terminal, coordinating a movement without alerting our captor. You don't have to follow orders blindly. The atmosphere grew thick, like a pressing tide. Seconds ticked. Every heartbeat echoed the futility of our dwindling chances. Our pursuer hesitated. The fissures in his conviction surfaced. A vulnerability I wasn't prepared for started eating at me, interweaving fear and hope. Stop. His voice quaked, enunciated in anger veiling confusion. You think this is all a choice. We don't choose how this world exists. I think you can choose how you navigate it. My breath caught as I locked my gaze on his, channeling conviction born from desperation. You have a chance to stand against the tide. Join us, and together we'll expose their truth. Stark, the monster within this world, wears the mask of law, but we'll tear it off. Drawing closer, I could sense Mark now shifting carefully behind the enforcer, aching for a moment that could shatter the tension stronger than the pulse blaring from the interface, his hand inching toward the weapon. I heard a group of footsteps thunder outside, pushing their way toward us. Once they arrive, they'll kill you both without hesitation. The enforcer barked, defiance momentarily flickering in his voice. I don't even know who you are. Then let me show you, I spat, flinging open my emergency tablet to reveal glimmering data, pouring forth evidence of the Syndicate's treachery encoded into the overwrought technology. I've gathered secrets capable of unraveling their empire. We can dismantle the power they've held over us. Join us in being something more than just puppets dancing to their strings. Or you can die here, like a forgotten ghost swept beneath the cracks of New Eden. In that moment, Clarity nestled itself between waves of frantic desperation, fueled by shared bonds and tainted truths. Behind the enforcer, Mark shifted subtly, but the soldier was no longer hearing our voices. He was lost in the dilemma as the steady rhythm of their approach to hunting us thrummed, and enveloping anxiety brewed. The enforcer hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his face, an ephemeral chance lingering between decision and desire. In that silent chasm, I felt alive, exhilarated by the birth of hope. Every inch closer to liberation ignited my spirit. "Take it and be a part of our story or leave us behind," I whispered, commitment seeping through the air. In that storm of contemplation, the door shattered inward, revealing a squadron of enforcers spilling into the room like dark waves, their armor glinting ominously under the dim lights. Panic struck my heart anew as the moment of truth faltered. "Get down," Mark shouted, crashing into the enforcer and tackling him to the floor. I threw myself back against the console as blasters erupted with a thundering crack. Chaos spiraled, but something lit the way ahead, a fateful intersection among fear, anger, and the unfurling potential of secrets to unravel bonds suffocating our existence. My mind raced back to the flickering map of the Syndicate's hideouts, and the windows of hope we had unlocked loomed like beacons in the night. Arming myself with determination, I leaped over the console. "We have to fight through or escape this place. Go." Mark's voice erupted alongside the violence. The shimmering pulse of the blasters burst in roaring iridescence, cutting through the air with deadly intent. I dove low, crawling behind remnants of the cluttered equipment, keeping my aim aligned with the enforcers. The energy crackled, electric intensity surging, igniting the embers of chaos in my veins. For everything we had lost, for my brother, and for all our troubled bonds, I wouldn't let the gathering win. What began as a reckless race towards survival transformed into a battleground of ideals, power struggles, interlacing with fervent hope. Each pulse of plasma echoed as we fought through threaded fates, unraveling the threads of darkness entwining our future, stored within the very essence of New Eden's fallen skies. Together we would forge our own light, into another realm where defiance met resilience, the tapestry of survival woven from the depths of despair. In that panicked clutter, new alliances formed, and tomorrow's dawn rose over the chaos, illuminating the steps to freedom. This standoff filled the room with palpable tension, beams of blaster fire lighting every shadow, the desperate cacophony echoing our resolve. Deep inside, I felt the fragility of the moment. As if with each hit fired, we were unraveling threads of a larger design that had kept us tethered in isolation. The air crackled with energy and danger, a dissonant orchestra of conflicting destinies. "Keep moving," I shouted, taking my place near the entrance as Mark wrestled with the enforcer alongside him, their bodies entwined in a heart-pounding dance. The other agents surged into the chamber like a tide, their blasters letting loose, illuminating their cold, unyielding faces. Bullets flew as I darted to the side, my heart racing as I pulled the emergency controls down, triggering the automated defenses hidden within the hub. "I just need a few seconds," I yelled back to Mark, my fingers moving instinctually as I leveraged the technology around me. The room shuddered and the air hummed in response. A series of lights flickered and metallic barriers began to rise. Sparks erupted around me like angry stars, igniting a brief refuge as the automated sentinels activated nearby. In this dark place, amidst the chaos, there lay our only salvation. Don't let them pin us down." Mark's shout tore through the chaos, bringing urgency to my fingertips. "You have got to disrupt their formation." The flush of adrenaline surged in my veins, and I slammed one fist onto the control panel. It ignited a blinding light from hidden configurations in the room. Shimmering barriers expanded, dividing the enforcers and redirecting their aim. They stumbled, caught off guard as my emergency protocol kicked in. Overlaying hologram masks, targeting mechanisms, I screamed. Now, the control was mine. That was the only certainty left. A holographic replica of the hub shimmered into existence above the console, A false environment projecting routes, paths, and exits. It gave us the edge we so desperately needed. As the enforcers staggered over each other, they fired blindly at the illusions around them, blinded by confusion. Mark seized the moment, body slamming one of the off-balance enforcers against the metallic wall, incapacitating him with abrasive precision. I could almost hear the crack of bone clash against steel. The second enforcer collided with the exit barrier erected in our way, grappling desperately in darkness as he processed what was happening. "Push through," I yelled, and Mark nodded, eyes locked on mine with fierce determination. He lunged past me, diving toward the obstruction that segmented us from escape. Just behind him, I rallied past flickering light, weaving between the formations rapidly shifting, a surge of realization igniting my path. My fingers brushed the tablet connected to the grid, dimly aware of sprawling data streams dispersing across the virtual sea-like threads, weaving into an uncertain tapestry. "Mark, we need to send a signal. Now, on it." He was already on the task, darting back toward the primary console to modify the terminal. But the enforcers seemed to shift their focus as more reinforcements arrived. A pinprick of hope spiked inside me as I scrambled, willing this moment to stitch itself together. "If I can tap into their own systems, we can disrupt their comms," I shouted, my heart pounding a mantra against my ribcage while making sense of the controls. The overhead lights flickered menacingly as blaster fire kicked across the room, ricocheting threats that made every breath feel like a perilous affair. "Do it," Mark urged, his face a mask of grit, determination tightening his features. With a few quick commands, I plunged into the enforcer's network, code tumbling beneath my fingertips, trying to jam the communications line while drawing up our hidden locations across the city pillars. Within seconds, I felt the snarl of communication collapse into static noise. Each crackle laced through the tension that surrounded us. "There, now we can communicate without their interference," I shouted as the defensive barriers folded back, granting us the reprieve we needed. Mark's eyes flared with relief as the enforcers stumbled, confused by their own scrambling systems. Then we regroup. We fight toward the west sector. They cannot have anticipated us. Move. With frantic urgency, we pressed forward through the mayhem, dodging through turned machinery and scattered debris in chaotic rhythm. The narrow corridors blurred into a maelstrom of flickering lights and chaotic echoes, every moment testing our resolve in a frantic race toward survival. As we neared the western boundary, loud voices echoed behind us, the first wave of enforcers regrouping. They had regained their bearings and were rerouting the shimmering pathways of the hub. Desperation surged anew. We had to reach the exit before they pinned us down. "Cover me," Mark exclaimed as I glanced back. A massive configuration loomed ahead, a door that could lead us into the greater labyrinth of New Eden. I glimpsed through the opening, the flicker of hopeful light beckoning us beyond the grim confines of our hidden location. Yet, satisfaction felt like a mirage. Apprehension ran deeper than we dared acknowledge. I threw myself against the door's controls, fingers flying across the ancient interface as the locking mechanisms clicked, vibrating against my pulse. "Come on," I spat, the console beeping aggressively, a reminder that every decision we made wrote the future we faced. Mark extended his arm behind me, determinedly firing his blaster into the chaotic noise of pursuing agents. "Now go." As the door swung open, a whirlwind of light consumed us. We bolted outside, the cool air biting against our skin as we rushed into the sprawling cityscape of New Eden. My heart raced against the pulse of our surroundings, the neon lights shining fiercely amidst the darkened horizon forward. But as we crossed the threshold, it all collided before my eyes. An immense platform stretched overhead, the remnants of a broken resistance visible. Scattered debris leaned against walls, remnants of the fight we never knew had waged before us. "Where are we?" I gasped, breathlessly scanning the area, each soul now visible, standing against the backdrop of impending doom. A collective of faces radiating anger and resilience, gathering like embers. their eyes locked on to ours, an urgent understanding resonating in the air. I felt something shift in the atmosphere, like a tension released amid the chaos. "We're not alone," Mark said, the weight of unspoken knowledge hanging between us. "There were remnants here all along, waiting. We need to unite them." My focus landed on a figure who emerged, his presence towering against the gathering crowd, a woman clad in layers of torn fabric. The emblem of a phoenix stitched into her jacket, glimmering defiantly in the light. "Welcome," she called, voice echoing through the murmured whispers. "We've been expecting you." The crowd settled around us, eyes wide with hope and pain transitioned with humility, raw energy surging as she beckoned Mark and me closer. "The time has come for a revolution, but we need your stories, your experiences, the truth you carry." In that moment, I felt anew the weight of our struggles weaving into the heart of something greater. Our fear, our danger, our failure. Each wound bore witness to our tenacity. Resilience blossomed, and the urgency of secrets thrummed behind every breath. Our stories connected, binding merciless threads intertwining the future of New Eden. Together, I heard Mark say softly, almost to himself, as the color of rebellion sparked anew amongst us. An undercurrent of rising power surged, and my hands clenched at my side, both shaken and emboldened by what laid ahead. We would rise above the wreckage, breathing life into memories lost, summoning resolve against a foe that seemed insurmountable. Together, a roaring fire ignited in the unseen alcoves of our souls. Today would not be a point of despair, it would be our dawn. We shifted, faces radiant with purpose toward the future that awaited. The battle for our freedom had begun, our voices rising like punctual echoes against the darkness. The game of shadows twisted ahead, and we would challenge the puppeteers, rewriting our fates with each step forward. Our bond held tighter in the face of undeniable chaos. The streets weren't merely bustling paths of isolation anymore. They were stitched with hope, their vibrant colors bleeding into one another, forward together. The horizon stretched infinitely ahead of us, pulsing with rebellion. The streets of New Eden pulsed with energy, the very air buzzing as we stood amidst those who had gathered in anticipation. Faces that had once been shadowed in despair now gleamed with determination, their expressions framed by the neon glow of the city surrounding us. We were no longer just survivors. We had become the harbingers of change. "Tell me your names," the woman with the phoenix symbol shouted, her voice cutting through the murmur of the crowd. "Tell me your stories. We cannot fight what we do not understand. Each of you has a voice, a purpose. We rise together or we fall apart." The tension was palpable, a mingling of nerves and hope that crackled in the air like electricity. I clutched Mark's arm, a grounding presence amid the spiraling chaos, as I opened my mouth to speak. My throat felt dry, but the fire inside me burned brighter than the fear that tried to latch on. "My name is Paula," I began, feeling the weight of their gazes settle on me. "I've raced through the alleys of this city, chasing glory and taking reckless risks, and it nearly cost me everything. My brother, Mark, and we stood on the brink of destruction, forced apart by betrayals that cut deeper than we knew. Mark stepped forward, his voice steady as he picked up where I left off. The gathering seeks to crush us, not merely as a rebel faction, but as a race. False alliances, double-crossing enemies, our world has become a chessboard for them, yet we've stumbled upon truths that can finally help us fight back. As I felt the weight of their stares, I could see the flickers of understanding live in their expressions. The fear was palpable, but so was the resilience, the burning desire to reclaim their lives from the claws of the gathering. "We are stronger together," the woman shouted again, her call echoed by the people in the crowd. "Tell us how you survived, tell us how to fight." What followed was a cacophony of voices. Each person stepped forward to share their own story, stories woven with pain, survival, and a shared thirst for justice. There were tales of families torn apart by the syndicate, of friends lost in the shadows of betrayal, of hope deserted in the wake of despair. With each narrative, a new flame ignited. The crowd swelled around us, growing more animated, absorbing each tale like kindling, feeding a raging fire. An older man recounted how they had uncovered the gathering's distribution routes, revealing plans masquerading as humanitarian aid. A middle-aged woman shared how her son had been taken, radicalized by the same technologies that had once shielded our society from external threats. A group of teenagers joined in, vowing that their locks of youth would not remain captive. They would stand in defiance, ready to challenge the forces ruling our destinies. In this moment, the disconnect of our individual struggles melted away. We were no longer just Paula and Mark, nor were we shadows of a broken system. We embodied a movement born out of desperation and raw stories, intertwined like a tapestry, each tale a thread woven into the bigger picture. And the bigger picture wasn't a race. It was so much more. "You see," the woman with the phoenix said, her presence commanding and fierce, "we are not weak. We are the very essence of resilience, and we will not hide any longer." The imperceptible swell of fear began to dissipate. Each heartbeat matched with the collective rhythm of hope rising from the gathering throng. A palpable tension transformed into a unified current thrumming beneath our feet. A rock, solid foundation of belief building as testimonies rang louder with each wind that blew through the street. But amidst the swell of inspiration, a voice in the back of my mind flickered reminders of the gathering's ever-watchful eyes and the danger lurking just beyond the horizon. We were drawing attention, and the hounds would surely sniff out our gathering, a fact that hung over our shoulders like a storm cloud. "Paula, we have to move quickly," Mark whispered, even as others stepped forward to share more stories, an urgent light glimmering in his gaze. "The gathering won't let this continue. Their forces are stretched thin, but they'll come looking." I nodded, the weight of urgency anchoring my resolve. "We've got to strategize, organize, use these voices to coordinate our next move, gather everyone's strengths." The Phoenix woman nodded knowingly. "Then we will gather our forces, combine our resources and skills to formulate a plan. We are stronger than they believe." As she spoke, I looked around at the faces illuminated in that growing daylight, hearts provided with purpose amidst previously unfathomable darkness. It became evident that each of us had something to lay on the table. A skill, an insight, a person we could rally or connect. "We're no longer scattered pieces," I said, standing taller with renewed vigor. "We've found each other. We can harness whatever trust exists. If we go all in, we can devise a plan that spreads into other enclaves outside New Eden." Mark moved beside me, drawing close to the crowd gathered around the makeshift podium, excitement igniting his eyes. "Yes, we need to reach out to the other cells scattered beyond our city parliamentarians, disgruntled insiders, anyone who can provide us with intel. We should map our next steps now and form objectives. Shift the focus back to us." Intent and resolve thickened the atmosphere as heads began nodding in agreement. People started to break away. Small groups formed, strategizing, brainstorming ideas for potential alliances, and considering how to leverage the information we had gathered. Each connection solidified new ties to our movement, our efforts giving rise to momentum that felt unstoppable. As the buzz of conversation flourished around me, I found my footing beside Mark, feeling the warmth of his resolute presence grounding me against the tides of anxiety. "We couldn't have done this alone, could we?" His voice was barely above a whisper as we observed the burgeoning alliances encapsulating New Eden. "No," I replied, my heart swelling with pride and determination, "but it's now or never. This is our time." "Then let's make it count," he said softly, a fierce glint in his eyes. As we stepped deeper into our community's fervor, each heartbeat felt sinking, and my spirit surged with unprecedented lightness. We wouldn't let the gathering define our story any longer. The streets outside the gathering continued to hum with electric energy as daylight stretched over the horizon, illuminating determined faces reflecting hope. A tapestry of defiance knit into existence. We had forged connections among the shadows and illuminated a path toward reclaiming our narrative, intertwining our destinies toward a shared rebellion, one that promised strength against the shaky foundations supporting tyranny's heartbeat. In facing the dark tomorrow looming ahead of us, I felt the pulse of our resolve coalesce. We would not relent. The dawn of our revolution would rise against the encroaching shadows, and for the first time in a long while, hope was not just a whisper lost in the wind. It was a symphony resonating in unison throughout New Eden, the world we would repurpose and fight for. Together, we would write our fate, a canvas bold with choices yet to be made. And as I locked my gaze on the horizon, a horizon painted with passion, struggle, and the promise of rebirth, I knew we were ready, the spirit of rebellion ignited within us, roaring to life, confident in the resolution that our time was here. Now, we would transcend the bonds that tethered us, clawing our way through the dark on the back of unbreakable unity, to craft our new destiny, one forged by the conviction of our will and the threads of the stories that bound us. The future awaited, and we would face it together. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting slanted beams of twilight through the fractured spires of New Eden. Those remnants of an age gone by stood witness to our resilience, the shadows lengthening like memory's distant echoes, now entwined within the framework of our unfolding revolt. Hope resonated through the air, a powerful pulse binding us together, urging us onward toward the dawning conflict that lingered just beyond the next corner. As we gathered and organized in the makeshift war room beneath the old city hall, the air hummed with purpose. The walls served as a canvas for our strategies, hasty sketches, mapping out the syndicate's key locations, the pathways that would extend our reach, and the hub where we would confront the gathering head-on. Each flicker of communication felt electric, building a collaborative energy that trembled light with knowledge and determination. In front of me, Mark consulted a cluster of notes chalked hastily onto a slate. "We can't underestimate their grasp on technology," he said, pushing strands of hair from his forehead. "But we hold critical data. If we conform at it right, then their communication will collapse under the weight of their own secrets." One of the teenagers who had stood in our initial gathering leaned over the table. "I can disrupt their systems too. We've been cracking into their networks for supplies clogging their traffic here and there." His eyes brimmed with that youthful optimism that often danced alongside urgency. "We get data to key contacts in the grid, and it will rally those across the sector. The old data hub was littered with secrets we'll expose." I chimed in, tapping the makeshift map with excitement. "If we coordinate with those cells we reach, leverage our intel, we could bring down key syndicate authority before the gathering can react." I met with a couple of pilots who know the city inside out. The woman with the Phoenix symbol added, her face a determined mask. "They can lead recon missions and get us within the syndicate buildings. Stealth is essential. We've seen enough betrayals. We can't afford to let them know our next move." The group of voices swelled again, drawing each other into a tide of ambition. Confusion mixed with clarity, anticipation dancing on the edge of fearful laughter. The stakes had rarely felt so palpable, yet so crafted. Each thread woven together held a vision deeper than individual salvation. This was the pulse of revolution we were nurturing. Attention mounted against the backdrop, the gathering wouldn't remain oblivious for long. And every moment spent amidst schemes and plans only deepened our resolve. I turned my attention to the interface sprawling before me on the table. The screen pulsated with chaos, colors swirling as data flowed, just waiting to be deciphered. "Let's synchronize our voices," I declared, then paused, casting my gaze over the diverse cluster of allies gathered. "Each of you, please convene with your groups through the grid. We'll expose these connections as we extend our communication lines and then act." We took a deep breath, the stillness before the imminent storm palpable. They began dispersing, newfound fire in their hearts illuminating the way as we prepared ourselves for the fight ahead. The culminating conflict that lay shrouded in uncertainty yet bursting with possibility. Mark squeezed my shoulder, a silent promise echoing between us. "We've got this, together." A *** strategic execution ** days blurred into one another as preparations accelerated. Under layers of neon-drenched streets, our burgeoning alliance coalesced, gathering like fireflies igniting in darkness. The grid crackled with anticipation, sharing intel and recasting forgotten lines of information. The once fractured shards became something solid, each formation responsible for unraveling the threads we had spun together. The plan was straightforward yet ambitious. We were to sever communication channels, light sabotage, and unleash clandestine attacks to sway the momentum towards our advantage. Each flicker across the screen now summoned that light, like flames in the wind, urging us toward the dawn we sought. "Are we ready?" Mark's voice cut through the pre-battle jitters that flooded the room. Each similarity felt impossibly heavy, but determination underpinned every heartbeat as we squared off against our enemies. The sharp realization that we'd shed no more blood from our own. "We're ready," I confirmed with conviction, steadying myself amidst anxious twitches. We converged tonight. The world trembled, the air rippling with anticipation as our clock ticked forward. Our moment was now imminent. The night draped down, shrouding our preparations. We stealthily moved through the quietened streets, a phalanx of shadows moving with purpose. Our first objective was the Syndicate's primary communication relay, a metallic hive squatting before the skyline. As we neared our target, the city echoed our heartbeats. Mark led the squadron, a blend of old timers and young firebrands. The bonds we forged like rusting chains, reinforced through mutual struggle. The tension tightened. Here lay our true test, daunting yet charged with undeniable sparks of rebellion. "Ready on my mark," Mark whispered, and I drew a deep breath. Soft whirs of drones patrolling above sent chills skittering down my spine, but our resolve remained steadfast, armored by shared determination. 3, 2, 1 now, Mark's command reverberated with battle, ready intensity as chaos erupted into action. We sprang forth, weaving through dimly lit pathways as we engaged the unsuspecting guards. Quick precision sparked. We incapacitated them before they could even muster an alarm. Just as quickly, we descended deeper into the heart of the Syndicate network, skirting pressure points, relying on our shared understanding of the terrain. The place was a maze, pulsating with bright screens and whispers of the past. There was little sentiment of greatest power rising in fury, only ours a flicker hidden beneath every step we took. Over there, a voice called out, and we traced the flickering lights to a central hub illuminated like an altar of chaos. "That's the comm relay. We can disrupt them quickly from here." We barreled forward, alarms suddenly blaring as soon as we breached the inner sanctum. The data controls shimmered in sterile light, yet urgency danced on the edge. "I can't hold it much longer," I spoke fervently, fingers flying over the controls, diving into the interface. Within moments, shadows loomed, the cold gaze of gatherings enforcers spiraling ever closer. I punched in commands, pursuing digital intrusions as the tension ratcheted higher still. "Focus on the target," Mark shouted, grounded in our strategy still. "We can't let them flank us." The gate blurred as I worked rapidly. Almost there, just a little bit. To the left, the sound of blasters firing penetrated the haze of focus, and Mark's steps thundered as he maneuvered, creating struggle with every ounce of resolve. Hot energy welled around me, the shadows of fear only fueling my resolve. 5 seconds more, I whispered to myself, my heart pounding in a frantic rhythm, matching the urgency surrounding me. The enforcers began flooding the room, faces masked in intent. I bit my lip, channeling everything I had into the data streams until, without a doubt, the interface opened, unbridled strands of information visible on the screen. But time felt finite, the seizure of moments aligning perfectly with the turn of fate. "Now," Mark shouted, and the instant I pressed the final entry, the air around us exploded into life. Waves of static surged like rippling water through the comm relay. Shut it down, and we did. Sparks spat as the screens frittered to darkness, day flying in erratic patterns. The room swelled around us like an uprooted storm. Chaos danced like lightning bolts within frail treetops, brimming with uncontrolled energy. Let's move. Mark's voice resonated through the tumult, pulling me from the whirlwind of triumph as I grasped his hand. We dashed out of the room as blasters ignited around us, the echoes of chaos trailing behind like shadows, each heart racing against time, reminding us of the stakes. We would not become statistics threaded between chaos. "Oh, what now?" I gasped, depending on Mark as he led us through the corridor, training and instinct guiding us into open air. "They'll know we hit the relay." We reached the rendezvous point, regroup with the others. His answer came back rapid, weaving through the chaos in his mind as we fled. Above, drones began sweeping in our direction, their whirring sound echoing behind us. It was a countdown, a menacing reminder that escape wouldn't last forever. The storm whirled around us as we approached the exit point, stepping out into sweet air. The sky flickered with starlight, the night a blanket above us. But behind us, danger loomed. "We need to get to higher ground." I pointed toward the nearby abandoned scaffold, remnants of what had once housed civilians looking for refuge. On 3, 1, 2, 3. With a heave, I hoisted myself onto the jagged slab, Mark's swift movements carrying him alongside me. "This way," he shouted, leading us across the roof tiled under the moonlight like a silver quilt. "Keep moving." Other members of our coalition joined, their figures swiftly blending into the shadows, rallying behind us as we leaped across ledges to higher ground. But as we gained elevation, blaster fire began erupting beneath us like sizzling thunderheads. Our movements quickened, scrambling higher as the enforcers' sharp yells echoed below. The air buzzed with adrenaline, the trust we had forged leading us forward into safety or peril. Each step pressed us deeper into the chaos, voices crescendoing around us. Forces rallied behind us, other resistance teams emerging, as if lightning struck, igniting flames of solidarity across the night. Together, united in our commotion, we committed ourselves to wielding our combined strengths against our foes. ****, final confrontation ***, finally. Once we found a clearing atop the series of dilapidated rooftops. The euphony below morphed into pure disarray, the fallout of our insurrection rippled. But we were no longer a handful of rebels. We were the granite foundation of resistance forging against the tides. Start diverting their attention. Mark gestured toward a small squadron of fighters, eager to take to the aerial. Their silhouettes took shape against the chaos, brave and vivid under the scattered sparks of blaster fire. "We'll cover the western side." Move to engage and corral them. Anticipation rippled through the air, our spirits high. We would converge halfway through the city, recoding the lessons gathered alongside our newfound allies. It felt almost poetic, the strength woven under the flickering neon lights wrapping around us. As we leaped further down through gaps between the rubble, blaster fire echoed behind us, enforcers positioning themselves for a resurgence. Their presence fanned the flames of urgency. We stepped deep into the fray of uncertainty, and as we engaged one another, clarity ignited in response. "A move," I yelled, firing off several shots as we closed the distance toward the foes barreling toward us. We streamed together flawlessly, forming defensive walls around the core of our forces, countering with precision and agility. This was more than fighting. We fought for something greater. The spirits long ago severed that sought to anchor themselves to freedom. "Advance." Mark's shout cut through the chaos. In that moment, I was reminded of all the broken pieces we held dear, every heart lost in moments of cruelty and burning revenge against fading memories. The fire at our backs pushed us forward with every breath. Weariness, dread, and loss became brief flickers of resolve as we aligned against this weight. Corrupt as it was, and the clash roared into chaos. Allies merged against shared burdens, fire-worn faces cascading into resolve. Together, we surged through the battlefield, ignition exploding against the shadows. We weren't merely invaders here, we were forces aligning with one cause. The gathering had thrived on division, but in that bombastic moment, we chose union more than ever. "Push forward," my shout echoed, a surge of rally unshackling within the fray as we closed the distance. Wave after wave crashed, voices melding. A swell of resistance. Strike them, Mark cried, his eyes gleaming with heat as plasma shots echoed around us. Around the entrance, the scatter grew more tumultuous, our powerful advance, drawing in allies from every corner. We seeped past shadows that had previously strayed into solitude. The room felt charged, the dynamics shifting with each exchange, whatever remained of our alliances empowering through unity. We pressed onward, navigating the dim hallways, anticipating our enemies at every turn. Then a sharp crack reverberated through the air, a dreadful thud as one of the enforcers collapsed at my feet, a surge of adrenaline pushing me toward the forefront. Mark held his ground behind me, maneuvering through splayed bodies and ringing chaos as we dove deeper. "Stay close," he shouted, urging us onward, and the way forward unfolded, lights still shimmering amid darkness ushering memory. A promise squeezing around us like the grips of destiny, lighting a spark flickering in response. Then, a moment stilled in the chaos, a meeting of eyes. I caught the silhouette of the lead enforcer, towering, his face obscured by a helmet, yet determination surged behind the visor. Their presence was a torrent amidst the raging tide. There was no room for wavering courage. Only a moment of light shined through. Through the darkness we rise, I yelled as energy rippled through our lines, each single soul flaring lighting bursts tethering our resolve. Mark dove across a division as the explosion rippled beneath us, a force exploding through the fray. But we were resolute, each memory woven with ferocity, with eyes sharp and holding history as fuel against those who had turned their backs. And in the midst of chaos, the gathering strength floundered at every pass. Closer we edged toward the orgy of resilience. The weight behind us illuminated our fragility, weaving an undeniable thread into our battle cry. Our voices combined into one fierce will, a roaring defiance let loose against the encroaching darkness. Blasts fired and our movement surged forward. Steeled fire erupted as we overran the remnants of the enforcers. The tides shifted, the atmosphere morphed into a symbiotic wave, uniting against the very entities that had hungered for our silenced cries. "Press forward," I shouted, relishing in unity against the backdrop of 1,000 voices. The arrival of dawn broke with fierce conviction. The war was upon us, with strength groaning across every layer. Across fractured remnants, we surged toward victory, toward another world where hope blossomed anew, a beacon against oppression and silence. The gathering could not silence the fervent souls they underestimated, and in the very heart of New Eden, rebellion was at our fingertips, the fires of change buoyant in our grasp. We coursed forth with renewed tenacity, our resolve unwavering. For from the ashes of the gathering's seemingly indomitable strength, we would not merely survive. We would reclaim, recast, and rise anew. With every breath we took, we aligned ourselves toward destiny, fueling the oncoming dawn, refusing to cower beneath the growing storm. The horizon gleamed before us, unraveling threads of fear into the bold tapestry we stitched with benevolence. Together, we would birth the dawn that awaited us on this day of reckoning. All or nothing was etched in each regained heartbeat, swelling the flame within, more alive than ever, standing as one against the storm headed toward us. In the heart of this battleground, we knew our voices would not be stilled. They would carry life, hope, revolution. Today, we forged our rebellion against the darkness. Together bid the light to flourish in the coming moment. It was time to rise. The tempest of chaos surged through New Eden as we forged our path. Hearts ignited with the collective will of the people rallying behind our cause. Each clash echoed in our minds, a confrontation not just with enforcers of the gathering, but the very fabric of oppression stitched into the city's veins. We were no longer shadows in the night. We had emerged as a cohort of resistance, willfully confronting fate. Dawn finally broke over the horizon, a tentative light spilling upon a conflict-driven world. I stood atop the remnants of the old skyscraper, embers of fire from our skirmish still spattering against the soot. covered sky. The street below pulsed with chaos. Our allies rallied, waiting for our unified call to action, anticipation coiling within them like tightly bound springs. Is everyone ready? Mark stood beside me, his presence grounding my adrenaline-laden heart. I surveyed the thrumming lines of citizens waiting eagerly for direction, faces reflecting a mingling of resolve and fear. On my mark, pounding winds whipped through the streets, drenching us in the aftermath of previous struggles. Steeling myself, I felt the weight of our gathered strength pushing against me like a captive storm. This was it, the moment we would charge forward and reclaim our lives from the gathering's clutches, reclaim hope in a city that had nearly forgotten what it meant to resist. And now, I shouted, the echo of my voice melding with the collective roar of rebellion. We surged down the stairs, unity propelling us as we spiraled into the heart of the fight. Each step resonated with purpose, each face marred with hope, and every stride forward tethered us to the impact waiting just beyond the walls. Emerging onto the street, we navigated through the smoky haze, our lines dispersing into organized chaos as we advanced toward the gathering's command post. The wind carried the acrid scent of burnt metal, swirling with the underlying tension vibrating in the air. Each breath I took, I drew in promise, the promise of next steps regained, convictions converged. Our initial encounters sliced through the air like blades, every pulse ringing of solidarity as we made ground against the scattering forces of oppression. I spotted the woman with the phoenix emblem coordinating scattered groups through a cluster of allies wielding makeshift weapons, rallying us into formations. "Hold your ground," she shouted, buoying our spirits higher. Together, we push onward, aim for the heart, aim to dismantle their stronghold. But just as victory flickered on the horizon, a sudden tremor of dread pulsed through me. I felt the weight of eyes watching, unyielding and ruthless. I turned, scanning the skies just as a chill rushed through my veins. Sleek drones shifted above us, their silhouettes looming dangerously close. "Mark," I grasped his shoulder. "We've been compromised, they're tracking us." Eyes up. Mark fired back, redirecting his focus toward the sky just as the first wave of drones emitted blaring alarms, slicing through the air with ruthlessness. "Squad 1, create a diversion along Market Street. We need time." The ordered chaos erupted anew, mixing shouts with the roar of blaster fire as we scattered. A chaotic embroidery of humanity colliding against the backdrop of mechanical dread. Our intentions unfurled like wings, even as those mechanized eyes whirred ominously overhead, scrutinizing the rising tide of revolt. "Paula, we need to push through," Mark shouted, urging myself and our team onward, moving toward a group of enforcers that had assembled across from us, weapons drawn and ready. We couldn't falter now. The whole cause hinged on this moment. The city seemed to thrum with anticipation beneath the weight of our momentum. I took a deep breath, channeling the power of our shared urgency, and turned to face the advancing line of enforcers. "For New Eden," I yelled, raising my weapon alongside those beside me, voices melding into one. The unity propelled us forward as we charged into the fray, becoming a singular force of violence, hope, and resilience. We could not simply survive, we fought for people, for dreams long extinguished. With each pull of the trigger, clarity filled my vision, a desperate tidal force stimulating every move I made. The enforcers fell back, confusion closing in through their ranks. Then, a blinding pulse of light distracted me. A disorienting wave surged overhead. "Forward, keep moving," my voice rang louder, echoing into a tumult that ignited the responsibility of leadership through shared purpose. We surged into the now bewildered enforcers, adrenaline-fueled conviction propelling our actions. I refused to back down. Our story would not end with silence. "Regroup and hold them off," Mark shouted, barreling through the front lines with the force of our hopes, standing steadfast alongside our comrades, their eyes blazing with determination as we moved through the oppressive force stifling our path. We were a cyclone of defiance, an unyielding chorus threading together our vast ambitions, no longer mere fragmenting shadows drawn to the whims of the past, but a unified wave, surging onward, refusing to falter. A sizzled thud rang out as we engaged in combat, our unforeseen movements confusing the enemy as chaos erupted from every corner. Blaster fire echoed like thunder, weaving sparking streaks of light across the battlefield. We were ready to confront our enemies, ready to expose the truth hidden in their shadows, ready to reclaim a narrative that mattered. Survival burgeoned deeper within every voice. We were not alone in this fight, not isolated within our struggles. Each small act of courage became a beacon that ignited rebellion. We moved back to the rendezvous. I commanded, pushing groups to reposition, retreating in an alliance of strength. The heart of our coalition was alive with conviction, and we needed to hold our ground. Mark flicked his gaze back, his determination unwavering. A push toward the data hub. We need to sink our claws into their resources, expose everything we've uncovered. With a pulse of urgency, we retreated with tactical precision while fending off regrouped enforcers trailing closely behind. Blaster bolts crackling above us. Shadows danced amidst fear. It felt palpable, draping over the city like a restless shroud. Suddenly, the ground quaked, shifting beneath our feet. From above, a colossal drone descended, armed and hungry. A predator born from the gathering, scanning relentlessly for a singular prey. "Look out!" Someone screamed, but I was already fading into instinct. We dove for cover, hearts racing with terror as the monstrous craft emitted sharp shards of electric fire, pieces exploding around us beneath the weight of its determination. Each impact resonated within me, a call to action. This battle was far from over. "Regroup," I urged, aware that resolutions depended upon a singular unity, that our very essence thrummed with capability against the impending darkness. As we sought to thin the ranks of enforcers, I caught a flicker of crimson at the edge of my vision. The droning beast had settled its focus on us. "Push through. We must evade the oncoming wave," Mark shouted, piercing through the cacophony of chaos, urging us forward. We consolidated, weaving through strewn barricades as the ground splintered beneath us. Shadows hastened, shadows of the gathering's wrath seeming relentless. We surged, sweeping down an alley that led to the data hub, the heart of their operations glimmering alongside the fraying hopes we harbored. Shouts coiled around us. Distorted voices grew more aggressive as we collided against the backdrop of encroaching machinery that cupped despair yet thrived on defiance. We slammed into the threshold before us, stumbling inside the data center as enforcers peeled away in pursuit. The air crackled with electricity, a low hum resonating beneath our feet. I focused on the ground, desperate for the heart of what we'd found, the sacred pulse relaying threads of truth that would tether our new coalition together. Spark the flames of rebellion across the hundreds scattered beneath the walls of New Eden. Into the control room, Mark said, guiding our crew as the enforcers hissed behind us, seeking out shadows that dodged their advance. Frantically, we rushed against the dark, slamming the door shut, but the clarity of breath drew thin. We were nearly through, merely seconds remained, each heartbeat igniting urgency in the air. "Get access to the data feeds," I commanded, finding the flickering screens illuminating our path against the somber shadows. "And now, we need to expose their secrets." Mark directed our allied hackers toward the core console ahead. "Focus, bring it up." Anxiously, I turned against the doorway, feeling the vibrations of the approaching enforcers. They were hunting us relentlessly. Each moment threaded clarity into the gathering chaos. We would seize our fate. Fingers danced against controls, the tapestry unraveling through the screen as the informational streams began unrolling. A braid of intertwined revelations that ignited each memory buried beneath local systems, sifting clues hidden beneath layers of corruption. "Get ready," one of the scouts yelled as footsteps beat closer, the door shuddering against a burdensome force. "We don't have time to lose. Their entire operation is connected to this data. It's our last shot," Mark pressed, his voice igniting fierceness as streams of intel illuminated screens like flames. I steeled myself against the door, thuds vibrating through the wood as we gripped spine. Tingling adrenaline, hearts racing within the confines of humbled determination. Don't let them breach us, I warned, every muscle wound tight, visions merging with possibilities of hope. The information scrolled rapidly. Our moment hinged on those flickering lines, weaving strands connecting our coalition, visions, and deep-seated determination against the encroaching night seeking to consume hope. As the door buckled again, both reverberation and structure crumbling, Mark gathered his group close to the screens. Every flicker of data stream illuminated our next chapter. And I fought against the dread creeping in breaths, stealing resolve. In one final push, we surged together, sensing the impending weight of the gathering pressing down upon us, that mouth of chaos gaping for truths concealed beneath the oaths that bound them. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I blared, resonating against the echoes of the room. We exposed them now. With that, I slammed my palm on the console. Day surged forth into a cascade of chaos. Millions of lines sparked against myriad screens, interweaving those lost connections, the core of their corruption unveiled. As the walls began to shake, shadows loomed behind us, and the door gave way to a surge of enforcers rushing in. Get out, Mark shouted, eyes aflame with urgency as lights flickered. A deceptive pulse echoed throughout as the screens shone bright, illuminating shadows against faces filled with terror and solidarity. Too late, I answered, adrenaline roaring as thousands of identities unfolded into the minds of those outside the walls. A tapestry bursting forth that could not be restrained. We'll hold them off. Together, we shouted, voices melded with purpose, as we advanced, knowing we had triggered something profound. A remembrance to shine threaded through rebellion. Before chaos consumed us within, as the unending tide surged forth, I locked eyes with Mark. We gripped onto something fierce, recognizing our paths intertwined as we breached the gates of unity. Then I could almost taste it, the adrenaline mingled with the sweetness of impending promise, as we watched the information flash across screens like submerged lights, reclaim the shadows drowned beneath falsehoods. With resolve, we tore through the enforcers, rebelling against the force that came barreling toward us, igniting a revolution as the dawn beckoned against the remnants trapped within New Eden. Together, we sealed our fate with daring fixations, courage ignited in every breath as we prepared for the storm yet to come, resolute knowing our battle would soon take on new shapes. Bring them down. We thundered into the daybreak as the secrets of the shadows wove into knowing, as we ourselves stepped into the rising light of hope in a future reborn anew. The streets sang with fervor, our voices igniting the pulse of freedom that awaited us, one that breathed hope into our hearts, flickering with undeniable resolve, ready to take charge of our fates. Together, we would rise strong against whatever darkness awaited us just beyond the horizon. By the time we broke free from the din of battle echoing through New Eden's underbelly, the air crackled with anticipation. Shadows flickered against the remnants of the day, a hub we conquered, and remnants of chaos lingered like phantoms in the air. We had laid the groundwork for a convergence. Now it would be a fight to uphold the very truths we'd unearthed. Pressing onward, we emerged from the center of conflict through narrow alleyways long abandoned but alive with potential. The streets pulsed with unfamiliar energy as rebels rallied together, every heart entwined with newfound courage. The flame of resistance ignited with the newfound knowledge of the gathering's secrets. Gather, everyone, I shouted to Mark as we made our way toward the rendezvous point, urgency ricocheting through my veins. We need to unify our forces. We've exposed them. We must act before the gathering has time to retaliate. Mark nodded, his gaze sharp with determination. Right, get the message out to every corner of the city. This is the moment we seize back control. The sounds of an uneasy cityscape surrounded us, neon lights flickering like fireflies against the encroaching shadows of uncertainty. We wove through the throngs of people, the murmur of voices rising to a crescendo, while futures swirled unclaimed above us. A collective hope embedded in willing hearts. No more hiding, yelled a voice resonating through the streets. No more fear. The heady mix of fear and anticipation coalesced, much like the city itself. I felt a swell of adrenaline surge through me as each step led us closer to our allied forces, and finally, to the center of hope. We all knew what lay ahead. We were about to strike the very heart of the gathering and dismantle their insidious grip on New Eden. Asterisk, 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 as we arrived at the meeting point, a once adorned plaza now faded into oblivion. The energy among our group was electric. Shadows morphed into solidarity. People clustered, exchanging stories of the uprising, laying plans to harness the secrets we had leaked into the network. Old alliances and new connections formed, each identity woven tightly into the fabric of our resistance. Fellow rebels, trumpeted the woman adorned with the phoenix, raised atop a makeshift platform. Her voice resonated like a mighty drum, beckoning attention. We stand today at the brink of revolution. Together, we have unearthed the truth hidden beneath the layers of oppression. Our enemy believes we are scattered and weak, but look at us now, stronger than ever. A roar of enthusiasm erupted from the crowd, a tide building. The names of those lost and imprisoned igniting a newfound fire in our spirits, gathering steam beneath it all. It was a moment steeped in defiance. This became our chance. It was time to act. We push forth toward the gathering's stronghold. We unravel their plans, incite chaos. Their web of control will not withstand our united front, the woman continued, her passion unwavering. But their forces are immense. Someone shouted from deep within the crowd, worry twinkling in the corners of their voice. How do we combat their technological prowess? The very technology they've relied on to enslave us carries their vulnerabilities. Mark countered, stepping forward, eyes shimmering with conviction. The truth we've exposed will turn the tide. We know their supply lines, their locations. We strike where it hurts most, then we vanish like shadows. The crowd erupted, fueled by a blend of raw emotion and courage. This wasn't merely about overthrowing an enemy. It was an embodiment of countless lives forever altered. Tonight, we stand as one. Tonight, we fight for the future we desire. I roared, my voice reverberating through the night skies. The crowd surged with enthusiasm. A living organism teeming with purpose, hearts aligned against the gathering storm. This wasn't just a battle, this was our resurrection. Asterisk, 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 as the hours passed, we formed ragtag groups, distributing intel as strategies unfolded. Each sector assigned a targeted focal point, fueled by adrenaline coursing across the city in intangible bursts. We're better united than divided, I voiced repeatedly, each repetition bolstering the morale that was now palpable. Well, let's infiltrate, Mark charged, gesturing toward the makeshift tech heads scattered among us, eyes ardent with fervor as they pulled together plans to reroute communication lines amid the chaos. Distract them so we can shift our forces toward the supply routes. Sandwich their operations before they realize what's hit them. The dawn of reckoning drew close. Shadows began to stretch, reminiscing in shades of dusk's embrace as we embarked on our enforcement march toward the gathering's unwitting stronghold. Asterisk, 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 the distance narrowed. Our hearts were hammering in rhythm, an electric pulse that synchronized our movement toward the enemy's domain. Buildings loomed ahead, looming giants cloaked in isolation. Silently, we spread through the streets, ninjas in shadow, as our scattered cells began coalescing, forming a cohesive front. An army forged from the depths of despair. Positions. Mark signaled, awareness cutting sharply through the tension in the air. The forces surrounding us quieted, hands on weapons, resolve shining through every gaze cast toward the menacing light before us. We spread outward, tracing paths across broken roads, navigating the nerves of flame within. I peered down the dimly lit alley where shadows danced and whispers rustled as they awaited our moment to ignite the spark. Ready on 3, I peered left, eyeing allies surrounding us, together willing to uphold everything we stood for. A 3. A resounding cacophony erupted like thunder, the air schooled with chaos, blasters illuminating makeshift paths as our fury broke forth. Go, 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 yelled Mark, leading our charge as we rushed down the streets toward the heart of the gathering, a chorus of ferocity enveloping us as we poured forth toward the very lungs of oppression. Asterisk, 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 inside the stronghold, alarms blared like sirens, a haunting call of chaos tempered by the resolve of our formation. Focus, we moved together, I commanded, listening to the underlying beat of our collective courage rallying with purpose. We pressed onward, fear rippling like moving shadows across our ranks. Clarity mounted alongside us as fresh wounds from the sharp battles emerged. But hope glimmered in defiance. We fought for our stories, weaponized against the myths that told us we could not triumph together. With each twisting corridor we charged through, the ground quaked beneath our feet. A symphony of determination echoed in the shadows as the walls threatened to close in. We wouldn't relent. The gathering would not divide us. A left, Mark shouted as we rounded an unexpected corner, colliding with a squadron of enforcers. Our forces boomed like thunder, the roar of blaster fire erupting in response, our formation bursting against their rigid defense. Press forward. The sentiment resonated, invigorated by adrenaline as we surged through their ranks, the fire erupting behind us igniting further momentum. A collective battle cry against a reality once thought unwinnable. Asterisk, 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 the battle intensified as we broke through the gathering's defenses in every heartbeat, every shot. Our voices melded into singular purpose. We push, allies join. We shouted amidst the fray, gathering energy, overshadowing the thrumming pulse that interlaced our futures. Crackling chaos echoed against the walls, but we held firm, each move informed by desperation, our very souls woven together. The din grew, the heavy clash finding its rhythm as we pressed deeper into the mechanics of their stronghold, igniting a spark that quaked beneath old structures lined with betrayal's shadow. We are not alone. Morale hung in the air, palpable and fierce as we pushed back, weaving through halls burdened by concealed truths, but fueled by freedom's promise, a revelation on the horizon. The pulse of the night wrapped around us like a protective shroud as we navigated further, pouring deeper into the heart of their operations. Find the main control, Mark urged, voice steady against the chaos that burgeoned behind us. That's where they maintain their grip. We need to dismantle everything. Asterisk, 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 we surged toward the control room, the heart of oppression looming ahead, thrumming with energy ready to be unleashed. As we broke into the corridor, we realized our race against time began to quicken. The gathering had begun to reassert its grip around us. A pair of enforcers emerged in our path, fierce and relentless like a storm focused on us alone. Engage, I shouted, adrenaline pushing us forward as blasters fired in synchronized rhythmic bursts. Mark flanked one side as I broke left, dodging electric arcs of blaster fire. We can do this. The battle crackled, blaster shots ricocheting off nearby walls, a ceremony of chaos unraveling as we moved. In an alert movement, I pressed forward, pushing through the throng where shadows once sought to stall, our movements growing bolder and united. Almost there, I yelled, plunging deeper, every nerve alight. A moment of hesitation had no place within our ranks. Courage reigned. We barreled into a wide open room at the end of the corridor. The control center sprawled before us, a gleaming array of monitors topping a massive central console, rows of glowing mandates cascading over each screen. The core of their operations awaited us, a vessel throbbing with malice ready to imprint upon us history's weight, but instead it would birth something new. Asterisk, 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 disrupt their systems, I shouted, and our surrounding allies rushed toward the main console. I felt a tremor coursing through the air, filled with tension, but we forged anew. We would disrupt their hold. With fingers flying over controls, I slid past obstacles, desperately searching for the files bearing the secrets that hung above our heads. Around me, allies shot disabling blasts toward advancing shadows, the resistance holding strong on every front. Each pulse of energy reflected our faith in one another, a collective heartbeat quickening the air around us, power down their communications. "We can rip the core apart," Mark called out, determination laced with every order. "I need to pull this data." I felt my heartbeat surge. It felt tangible freedom within grasp, but heavy urgency stifled each moment. "I need time." The chaos intensified as enforcers continued crashing through gates, a relentless wave seeking to obliterate our rise. Blaster fire erupted everywhere, ricocheting against walls now painted in the colors of freedom and defiance. "Steady," Mark commanded, urging friends to reaffirm fire against their advancing lines. "We'll hold this line. You have to act." With resolve surging within, I locked my focus back on the console, searching desperately for the files that would imprint their secrets of betrayal, sliding through layers of code as adrenaline rang within my veins. "Gather strength," the woman with the phoenix symbol shouted. Fingers racing like wildfire, I concentrated harder, crafting connections until at long last. A digital vein shimmered brightly, crackling laden secrets of the gathering surrounding me like tidal waves. "Found it," I exhaled, urgency fueled by the fire of memory and the faces that would emerge from beneath oppression. "We need to extract as much as I can before they breach." "No backing down," Mark yelled, his voice rising with conviction, rallying everyone around. "We stand our ground, we will fill our ranks with solidarity." As I pulled data upon data, laughter rang free from the depths of their arrogance, crumbling under truths exposed. My heart surged wildly within me as I finally shut down key operations underpinning their control. Lines dismantled and turned upon themselves. "No way," I gasped, the weight of all we had lost and fought for crashing through me. "We've done it." Our forces rallied against oncoming enforcers, courage interwoven with camaraderie bursting forth. Their defenses crumbled beneath the weight of the revelations bestowed upon us. A powerful retort of recognition, a testimony to our struggle, sparking into rhythm as we shot our way through the domain that had imprisoned our minds, opening up doorways left long unseen. "Shatter their hold," I shouted, adrenaline pulsating as our forces surged toward the exit, entering the core hubs with resolve, placing the very essence of solidarity alongside me. With each shot fired, the resolve grew, a tide receding fast to unveil truths once manipulated by the hands of betrayal. It's time," I commanded, the managing console glowing ironically with conviction as dark fallacies revealed. I hit the final command, forcing the core systems deafened by the light. Last surge sent forth, releasing files across the network, tethering our stories tightly against the dark. With that force rushing through, I watched as darkness exploded on monitors, flickering back against the shadows chasing us down. "Now, move." Together, we ran as the control center crumbled beneath us, their hold undone in a clashing tide that ushered forth hope through the screaming tumult of chaos. "Get everyone to retreat to base camp," Mark called, ushering allies behind him as we pushed through smoky walls corralling together, thrusting toward familiar ground. We melded onto the streets of New Eden, racing each other toward the rendezvous point, the revitalization of our cause blazing fiercely alongside us. It was over. The chaos receded as we stumbled onto asphalt, birthed into the heart of our city. Forces still met, but the charge rolled like wildfire across our ranks. This would shape our revolution. Threads of loss crisscrossed in countdown, yet each breath wedged a new narrative into the void. In every direction, our community swarmed like locusts, a furious air braided in struggle initially threatening, but sparked with liberation's promise. That shared strength carved paths toward set truth. As we regrouped, voices burned bright, discussions of future plans tangling together. A tapestry of triumph woven with every breath. "We're not just alive, we're a force, prepare for what's to come." Mark called above the fray, eyes alight. Hope exploded alongside our aspirations, flame wrought from past struggles, knitted in narratives reshaping destinies dormant beneath scars. The dawn painted our futures anew, igniting resolve within us, all eyes on the horizon. Together, we carved a future out of the ashes of darkness, believing that together, nothing could keep us in shadows any longer. A woven tapestry awaited us. Asterisk asterisk, together we would rise. Asterisk 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 asterisk, as we marched onward triumphant still, a fighting spirit emboldened every footfall we conjured against eternity. The daybreak flickered hope anew across New Eden, flowing with the collective light, emboldening the stories that awaited retelling, each pulse igniting purity into rebellion born from shared belief. Today wasn't just another battle fought, it held promise, renewal, breathed life, an awakening where shadows would recede forevermore. The future awaited us ahead, untamed and shimmering, a bright horizon adorned with truths regained and lives reclaimed. In the glow of dawn that signaled our challenge, our voices echoed through the streets, the heartbeat of a new era poised to rise. The embers of change crackled beneath the foundations of yesterday, and together we would reclaim everything we had fought for the heart of New Eden.